Welcome to Talking About Sports, the Carolina's #1 podcast. We're number one because you say we're number one. We're here with an all-star panel as always. Reggie Walker, Mountaineer Mike Freer, and back from a very long tour of Europe, Scandinavia, and the subcontinent, now newly nuptialized, JT John Tobias.
What's up, Cal?
Don't be a stranger, man.
I know, man. I know.
Big news. The Cleveland Browns, as far as we know, are on the clock, and they have the #1 pick in the draft. John Tobias, before we get any further, Josh Allen, who a very good quarterback out of Wyoming, rumored to be a top 5 pick, rumored in some circles as being #1 overall, has got embroiled in some type of a social media controversy with tweets from his high school days. Obviously, that's been a few years ago.
When I first heard about it, guys, I had 2 questions. Number one, when did it happen? Like, did it happen yesterday or did it happen like back in the day? And when I found out that it happened back in high school, I can only shudder to think about some of the things, dumb things that I said and did when I was in high school.
Where'd you go? Winston-Salem, right?
I know, in the mean streets of Winston.
Where were you? What high school?
Carver. Carver was gangster, too.
Uh-oh.
Yes, Carver was gangster. But the thing about it is that, in my opinion, really, it's much ado about nothing. I honestly, guys, have more of an issue of the person who put him on blast who was a grown adult to wait until the night before the draft to do that, because obviously that person is a grown person, is a grown-ass man. Excuse my language. But I have more of an issue with that. It reminds me of the Laramie Tunsil situation.
Talk to me, baby. Talk to me.
Absolutely. A lot of dollars went up in smoke in that bong bowl.
Yeah. It's a weird situation. It's interesting how these things happen just before, the biggest day of their lives. Mm-hmm. Without knowing specifically what was said and how you could look at it, you could make the case that it was planted there as maybe by the Browns themselves to avoid having to take him because it sounds like they want Baker Mayfield at #1. I mean, I'm speculating here, but when stuff like this happens, there's so many questions that are out there, and I mean, it's the last thing that Cleveland needs. They need to make the right pick. This is a big deal for them after an 0-16 season. They need to make the right pick, and this is definitely not what they need right before the draft.
Well, I'm gonna take a page out of JT's book. I'm right with you, JT. I'm gonna keep the thing going. Excuse my language. To hell with this report. This is lazy journalism to me. This kid has been at the top of this year's draft board since before last year's draft. And you wait till the night before to let this is lazy journalism.
October
it's garbage.
surprise.
And to add to that, this has become the trend of life now that I think is ridiculous. The minute somebody's on the cusp of something great, whatever it might be, it's, hey, let's go find some old tweets. We saw this earlier this month with Dante DiVincenzo, the Villanova young basketball player, who had his issues with Twitter in the past as well. First of all, if you're an athlete or anybody that's aspiring to do anything, don't press send, #1. But #2, and more importantly, as journalists, which I am one and have been one for years, don't be lazy. If you want to break the story when you get the information.
And by the way,
all right, Reg, top 5 draft order. I believe it's Cleveland, the Giants, the Jets. Give me some very quick down the line. What do you think? Who's going 1? Maybe a top 5 if you guys don't mind.
If it's me, if I'm running the Cleveland Browns, I'm taking Saquon Barkley at 1, and I'll explain that later.
Mr. Penn State says that.
Nope, that has nothing to do with it, because I've said on this show that I'm not sure he has all the skill set based on what he's been asked to do to run between the tackles. He hasn't been asked to do that at Penn State.
He's got another mouth to feed now.
My reason for saying that is they have Tyrod Taylor, a quarterback that won 9 games with nothing last year with Buffalo.
Absolutely.
So you have a quarterback that can win games. You give him a running game. You add to that defense with Minka Fitzpatrick at 4. Now all of a sudden you're starting to build a football team, not just putting in a bunch of players.
I don't think you can sell that to the fans without drafting a quarterback in first or #1 or 4. They've passed on guys like Carson Wentz over the years. They've got to draft a quarterback 1 or 4. Mike, what do you got?
Well, I'll tell you this: if I'm a Giants fan, I'm really loving the position I'm in as a fan, where the Giants are picking.
Someone could overpay you and give you a bounty and then move up.
Well, here's the first thing is the Browns are going to make the wrong pick, whoever it may be. One playoff appearance in 20 years, I'll go under the assumption they're not going to get it right. And number two, they have all the quarterbacks they want. If the Giants really like a quarterback the way they liked Eli Manning all those years ago, then I think you take a quarterback.
I just
if
don't
you
like
really,
this
if you
class.
like them.
You will never be that high to draft that another franchise guy.
I
That's
don't
the
like
other
this
thing.
class of quarterbacks.
You hope if you're Dave Gettleman.
I mean,
JT,
personally, I would take Barkley. That would be my pick too
all right,
for
JT,
the Giants.
What do you think?
You know, I haven't seen these guys in about a month, but obviously great minds
you've been
think
busy
alike.
on your honeymoon.
No, what honeymoon? But I would do the same thing. I would
you got
definitely
20
take
years, it's
Saquon
definitely no
Barkley.
honeymoon.
I would take Saquon Barkley without question. And I like what Red said. Tyrod Taylor had nothing
I love Tyrod
with
Taylor.
Buffalo. You know, with
Good team, he'll win
right
the
with
game.
Cleveland. Don't forget about Jarvis Landry. Just signed him to be a great possession receiver. You have Corey Coleman. You have Josh Gordon, hoping that he's able to continue his
Get off the
comeback.
bomb.
But yeah, if you have that and Saquon Barkley's in the backfield, and then of course with your fourth quarterback, if you're not sold, guys, in terms of if you don't have a clear-cut number one, you have a choice of maybe three.
I wouldn't touch quarterback in this draft if I'm
Reggie,
So not even number four.
No,
hold on.
absolutely not.
Would you go with Chubb?
Reggie,
No, Mika.
Reggie, what do you think of the Carolina
okay.
Panthers? All the way down to 24. Do they move up? Do they move down?
No.
Or if you're taking 24, who do you got?
They
What's the
move
best
down.
need?
If it's me, I look for a trade partner right now. If I can get, listen to what I'm saying. Panthers have 8 picks. This is one of them. Obviously at number 24. If I can get myself a net of 2 picks in a trade, meaning probably swap first rounders or get out of the first round, get to the second, and get 2 additional picks, I take that. This is a football team that obviously had a pretty good year last year. They don't have the gaping hole to where you say, you know what, we have to draft this right now. They don't have that. They have some holes that they've got to fill, and they've got some depth issues because of age and attrition over the years. So for them, I think an additional set of picks, if they can get to somewhere around the 10-pick total in this draft, I think this is better for this team. And you can still get, in my opinion, their most pressing need is safety. You can still get a Justin Reed or Quinn Blanding early in the second round to fill that safety spot. There's other safeties out there as well, and continue to add to your team from a depth standpoint through multiple rounds if you can get yourself to 10 picks.
All right, Mountaineer Mike, if you're Carolina, are you? I think you can't trade beyond maybe 30 and add a second and maybe a 2 4s or something. And like Reggie's, you're going to trade down into the late 20s, maybe even 30. Get yourself an extra 2 and maybe a 3 or 4 with that.
Well, I'll tell you this, and they are in a really good position.
They are.
The Panthers are. They have 4 of the first 88 picks as it stands right now. And looking at the notes here, I looked together. There's only one other team that won 10 or more games last year that has 4 or more picks among the first 88, and that's the Patriots. They are in a good position. The rest of their division combined only has 5 picks in the first 88 between the Falcons, the Bucks, and the Saints. So they are in a good spot to really better themselves and stay not only competitive but in the playoff hunt and a serious contender if they make the right picks.
And let me add one more quick point. The other reason why I think additional picks later in the draft is better, this is a team that has salary cap issues. The way to get around salary cap issues is to get quality players in the mid to late rounds of the draft that you're not locked up money-wise with.
As long as you think they
Rookie contract.
as long as you
is a
think
way
they
to get
can
out of
play.
salary cap. Problem.
Correct.
John Tobias, Marty Herney, the GM. Hopefully, he's not going to draft Jeff Ota, Everett Brown, or Monty Edwards. But if you're him and you don't draft any of those guys, where are you going?
Well, first off, let me go ahead and throw this nugget in. I like that stat, what you said in terms of Mountaineer Mike. In terms of wide receivers, I would be very leery to add to what you guys said in terms of drafting a wide receiver in the first round. Think of the 3 wide receivers that were drafted in the first round last year: Corey Davis, Mike Williams, John Ross. None of them really balled out. Even if you go back to 2015, Amari Cooper, Nelson Aguilar, Kevin White, only one guy had an 1,000-yard receiving career. I mean, in terms of season, and that was Amari Cooper. That's it. So in other words,
turned it on in the playoffs last.
he did, and also
3 years later.
right? Brashard Perriman, Philip Dorsett, Devontae Parker. Devontae Parker's a good receiver, but in
It could
terms
be in
of
a law firm for all I know.
he's never had 1,000 yards.
It's hard.
either. So in other words, you can get quality wide receivers. I know people like Calvin Ridley. I wouldn't necessarily take
Overrated.
him. You think that he's overrated?
Vastly overrated.
Okay. All right. Well, other people probably agree with you as well. To answer your question, I would definitely make sure to shore up the offensive line. You lost a great offensive guard.
Yep.
You may want to go ahead and definitely make sure that you draft someone to shore up the offensive line for sure to really help out Cam Newton.
Lots of needs, and I don't know if gaping hole is the right way that Reggie put it, but I think you definitely have to address the safety position, outside pass rusher to go. I mean, Julius Peppers isn't getting any younger. You need pass rush. In the NFC South, you've got Matt Ryan and Jameis Winston and Drew Brees in your division. The NFL nowadays is quarterbacks. They need to protect them with left tackles and guards. You need to have guys who can get after them at defensive end, outside linebacker, and you need guys who can cover the wide receivers, outside corners and slot corners, and you need a safety to cover the tight ends. That's where we are in the NFL.
Kev, I agree with that. The only question I would ask, and this is not me coming at you in any kind of way, the only thing I would ask you is, are you going to get that much better of a pass rusher at 24 than maybe you would get at 35? Just making that up. Just not suggesting a trade partner. I think that's the conversation that the Panthers got to have within their organization.
No, Bradley Chubb's definitely not going to fall to you at 24. All right, we're just getting started. We've got more NFL draft discussion to the talk. In fact, we're going to go all NFL draft here today, plus some fashion do's and don'ts with William Wilson. We're here on Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill.
Not really.
All right, welcome back to Talking About Sports. We're back at the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. We had a great time at the Razors. Was it Razors Barbershop, Reggie? Is that where we were a couple weeks
sir.
ago?
Blades
Barbecue. All right, great time down there.
Barbershop.
That's your home.
Blades
Barbecue, man.
Well, because I always like barbecue, man. Can't you tell? All right, Reg, any blockbusters you're hearing? I mean, could anybody move into the Giants at 2 and scoop in somewhere, or can someone, maybe the Jets get, or they've already made a trade? I think the Colts are going to trade down, and I think Buffalo is going to move up. By the way, Reggie.
Yeah, you know what?
I like.
You know, when you say blockbuster and we think about trades and movement, one that sticks out to me more than anything actually is the 2006 draft. When the night before the draft, the Texans announced that they had signed Mario Williams and they were going to make him the #1 overall pick over the quote player of a lifetime in Reggie Bush. And I actually, to be honest, I actually agreed with the pick. A lot of people didn't, and I said, look, you know, the previous year they had Dominic Williams. He eventually changed his name literally that offseason. Dominic Williams had gotten hurt, played only 11 games, and ran for almost 1,000 yards. So they felt like they had the running back position solved. They needed to get after the passer and really help their defense get the ball back for their offense. So they went and got a guy like Mario Williams. The problem was Dominic Williams never really recovered from the injury, and they had a hole at the running back position, which continued the downfall of one David Carr.
Offensive line hurt the Texans.
Well, that's what I mean.
Houston in 08. It was offensive line issues, but Steve Slayton did pick it up for them in the running game.
Yeah, he did. But that's the one that sticks out for me.
All right, Mountaineer Mike, what do you got in KT? Kevin Tolbert will put up a full screen of some blockbusters from over the years. Anything that comes to your mind that could potentially materialize, Mountaineer Mike?
Well, like you said,
be trading down.
What will the Bills do? What will the Giants do? I think are big moments here. You said the Jets have already moved up into that 3 spot. It's not like the Giants don't have a history of making the draft day deals at the top when they're in this spot. That's how they got Eli all those years ago, about 14 years ago. I think a lot of times we hear a lot of hype and everything, and nothing materializes as far as movement, trades, and all that. I have a feeling the trades are not going to happen as big as people think. I think these guys are going to make their picks. These teams are going to make their picks and go with that. I think
it doesn't always have to be John Tobias in the top 5. I mean, we saw Pat Mahomes get traded to Kansas City, and you worked there preseason this year. Deshaun Watson went to Houston.
Right.
I mean, you're talking teams that are in the teens and 20s, giving up trading ones and giving up next year's ones to move up that far.
And as a good segue, that's why I like what you said at the beginning in terms of how you like Buffalo in terms of moving up and Indianapolis moving down. And I think that they would be great trade partners because, as you know, guys, Indianapolis is picking 6. And if Bradley Chubb and Saquon Barkley are drafted, let's say in the top 5, one of those 4 quarterbacks, whether it's Darnold, Rosen, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, they're going to be available at 6. And you guys know even more so than I that Indianapolis, they have a lot of gaping holes. They drafted Malik Hooker, safety from Ohio State last year, good football player. But, you know, the Ryan Grissom era is over. Chris Ballas, new GM. They have a lot of holes to fill. And as you know, Buffalo, they have 2 number 1s. So if they go ahead and trade that and maybe a second-round pick, you never know that the Colts may end up biting with that.
I think they will, because I think Indy has so many needs that 6, they're not going to fill them. I think Buffalo, they need a franchise quarterback.
Yes.
EJ Manuel obviously wasn't it, so they're going to have to move on.
Well, they have A.J. McCarron right now.
I think he's good. I think he's better than people think, but you're not going to sell that to Buffalo fans. They're going to want a 1, and I think making a splash and getting one of these top guys are what they want. I think the guy they want is Baker Mayfield. Right. I think he's going number 1.
Right.
All right.
Isn't that hilarious?
And we got Taylor Davis has got a quarterback feature coming up in our next segment. This is Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill.
So Josh Allen is a head case under these tweets, but somehow Baker Mayfield, I can overlook all the other garbage that he's done.
Welcome back to Talking About Sports. We're here at the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill with Reggie Walker, Mountaineer Mike Freer, JT John Tobias. This year's draft has a lot of quarterback depth, from pure pocket passers like Wyoming's Josh Allen to Lamar Jackson of Louisville. Teams have to decide if talent are the perfect fit for their offense. Some will be looking for an immediate impact. Others will need to be groomed. Let's check in with our own Taylor Davis. She's at the ADSN Draft Central today. She's got some info on some of the top 5 QBs in the draft.
Thanks, guys. I hope you're having fun over there at Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. I'm over here working hard. I mean, one of us has to, but have some mozzarella sticks for me, would you? As you were talking about, a lot of impressive names in this year's draft, but it's a very quarterback-heavy draft this year. And add into the fact that a lot of these early picking teams are in search of a franchise quarterback. We all know it's imperative to find success in this league. So let's talk about some of those big-name quarterbacks. That number 1 pick, still kind of a question mark, but a lot of people are looking to Wyoming's Josh Allen. Now, not coming from one of the bigger of the programs, but probably the most powerful arm coming out of the draft. Add in his size at 6'5", around 230. You've got yourself an NFL caliber quarterback. The only issue with him, he's got to be in the right coaching scenario in order to grow and adjust to this competitive league.
However, there are new developments surrounding Josh Allen today. Over the past 24 hours, we have seen the resurfacing of some of his tweets dating back to 2012 and 13, in which he uses inappropriate and racial slurs. On the day of the draft, this definitely adds some controversy to Josh Allen and to whatever team could potentially draft him.
Then you've got USC's Sam Darnold At one point, he was the bit of the golden boy, the football go-to, if you will. A lot of people expected him to go at number 1, but his last season has been a bit of a question mark. He has raised some eyebrows as far as his consistency goes. A lot of people thinking he was jumping ahead to the draft and his mentality got a little weaker. Will that bring concern to these NFL teams to draft him so early? We will find out. We've seen him be impressive. We've seen him struggle. So it's up to the teams what they want to take on with a quarterback. Then you've got Josh Rosen from UCLA. I remember when he came in as a freshman and immediately impressed people. I'm sure a lot of these NFL teams are looking to him with high hopes. That footwork, his calmness in the pocket, seems to be a natural passer, but he has dealt with some injuries, and I'm sure that does raise some concern. Then, of course, you've got Baker Mayfield from Oklahoma, the current Heisman Trophy winner. He has made a splash on the college scene. He's a natural gamer. His competitive fierceness is something that any team would appreciate, but you do have that aspect of off-the-field issues. We're no stranger to the fact that Baker Mayfield has had some controversy off the field. Will a team want to adopt that along with his talent? And finally, you've got Lamar Jackson from Louisville. Another Heisman Trophy winner, really impressed people on the NCAA stage. He can run, he can pass, he really can handle an offense. But that accuracy, a bit of a question mark, especially when you add in NFL-style pressure. How will he adjust? Can't wait to see how all of these guys fare out and who the new faces of the NFL could be. Guys, I'm curious, your opinion, best out of those 5.
All right, great work, Taylor. Top 5 quarterbacks. I have a second-tier list of guys, John Tobias, but you worked one of Wyoming's games. Josh Allen was one of our guys in Taylor's piece. You are not as high on Josh Allen as maybe some others. I do like Josh Allen. I think he's got all the tools, but can he learn to read defenses? Can he learn to be an NFL starting quarterback?
I don't have anything against Josh Allen personally. I don't know him, but I would like to share something with you guys so we can go to the graph. I happened to do the Oregon game earlier this year when he in Laramie. And the thing about it is this. Okay, so they say that he played like in a inferior conference, the Mountain West. So it's not a Power 5 conference.
And he still didn't put up great numbers.
So the thing about it is you say, okay, well, how did he do against Power 5 schools? So in the past 2 years, he went up against 3 Power 5 schools. The Oregon game that I did this year, Iowa, and last year, Nebraska. 1 TD, 8 interceptions. Yep. And here's another thing. And I know Reg is going to have a lot to say about this. Well, a lot of times people say, well, what about, like his accuracy? And the thing about it is, okay, and they say the same thing about Lamar Jackson and his accuracy. I think that the big difference between those two guys is that, number one, Lamar Jackson played in a much, much tougher conference, number one. And two, let's say if he does have accuracy issues, he has an element about himself in terms of speed and elusiveness that separates him and takes him to another level. Josh Allen does not.
Not only that, if you look at Lamar Jackson's numbers, his completion percentage went up every single year he was at Louisville. Period, point blank. I don't want to hear anything else about accuracy. Get him on the right NFL team, coach him the right way. Let him sit for a year. I do think he needs to sit for a year, and then he'll take over and be a very good NFL quarterback. Personally, aside from him, really, and again, I said he needs to sit. I don't like any of these quarterbacks. None of these quarterbacks am I in love with that I feel like I need to use a top 10, top 15 pick on them. I just don't. Maybe it's just me. We've seen Josh Allen with his accuracy issues at times. We've seen Sam Darnold turn the football over. We've seen the enigma that is Baker Mayfield. So when you start thinking about this quarterback class, there's just a lot of things in these guys that don't make me feel like I want to put everything, especially if I'm a team like the Cleveland Browns and all the issues we've had drafting the right quarterback. I'm okay making sure that and what's wrong with Tyrod Taylor being a 2-year stopgap if the right guy is not there for me to really lead my franchise? Everybody says, a stopgap for 1 year, and then you find the guy that's the next 10 years. Well, yeah, but what if you're wrong again?
He won't be a stopgap for 2 years because I think he's a winner. And until
that's exactly right.
Until someone's better than him,
that's right.
It's going to take. Now, bring Carolina in here. Is it too soon to look at a guy to maybe put behind camp? Because Derek Anderson, I don't know if he's going to be around. I wasn't sold on any of the backups they've had lately. I mean, there's no more Damian Craigs running around. So,
is it too soon to pick his heir? Yes. Is it too soon to pick a solid backup that you can develop into being a long-term backup? No, you can do that. You don't need to do that in the first 2 rounds, but that's where, as I mentioned, getting the extra draft picks, you can use a third, or if you can get yourself a 4th-round pick in a trade in addition to other picks, now you can pick that guy in the 4th round that you can turn into your long-term answer.
Mountaineer
at
Mike,
the backup position.
look at the New England Patriots. Over the years, they've drafted guys like Jacoby Brissett. They've drafted other guys that they've in turn, Jimmy Garoppolo, that they have in turn traded. They've kept a good backup. They've had good insurance. And then they've traded and made a net profit out of this whole circumstance. So could Carolina get a guy, groom him, and he turns out to be good? And if Cam's still your guy, you trade this guy for future assets?
I agree with Reggie on this. In fact, I would go one step further. I wouldn't worry about a quarterback in this draft. I wouldn't waste a 4th-round pick on a quarterback with the other needs and the other potential that you could get out of
That's fair.
out of this draft. The problem with this, if you draft lower, if you draft a quarterback in the 6th round or the 7th round, you're not really getting much out. He's not going to be your backup. He's not, the number 2 quarterback.
Right.
You're not going to throw.
Well, I expect Derek Anderson to be the backup at least one more season.
I think they're going to end up, if it's not Derek Anderson, they'll get another veteran to bring in and to have security for Cam. I do think it is an issue they have to address at some point, if not this year, then maybe the next year, because Cam is not getting any younger, and the hits he's taking are not soft hits. He's taking a lot of tough ones.
He's taking some punishment, that's for sure.
All right, now, of the 2nd-tier quarterbacks, Taylor did a great job on the top 5. I got a 2nd tier. Mason Rudolph from Rock Hill, Oklahoma State, I think could be a 2nd-round pick. And a guy who's going to be the sleeper. And New England has scouted this guy extensively. Bruce Allen, general manager of the Redskins, went to this school. Kyle Lauletta of the University of Richmond, the Senior Bowl MVP. This guy is going to be, he's being compared to, he has to put it up on the field to warrant this comparison. He's the next Russell Wilson. I'm telling you, Kyle Lauletta of the University of Richmond is a very good football player. How about Luke Falk at Washington State? Mike White at Western Kentucky, and Charlotte's own from Memphis, Riley Ferguson. Any of these guys going to do anything in the league, do you think?
I think there's a chance that some of these guys could be solid players down the line. I think Ferguson, he's kind of a wild card. I think the thing I like about him is he's had some life experience a little bit, so he knows what's in front of him. He understands the moment a little bit better, probably, than some of those other guys.
Have a real job, is what you're saying.
Well, when you're painting fences in 90-degree heat in the Carolinas, that you will adjust your brain real quick. And I'll tell you a story about that. If you look at a guy like Cameron Wake, before he got himself going football-wise, he was working for Enterprise. If somebody makes you wash a car in a suit, you realize real quick, I'm 245 pounds. I got speed off the edge. What the hell am I doing washing cars in a suit? We saw him go to Canada, do his thing, and now he's with the Miami Dolphins and had himself a pretty good career. So Riley Ferguson, that's what I like about him. He's had a little life experience to motivate him a little bit.
I would say, as far as Mason Rudolph goes, Luke Falk goes, I think the system that they're in is going to hold them back either in perception or reality, depending on when they get on the field. When you get to the NFL, that's going to be a problem. It's just how it is with the spread offense. It's really tough to find those quarterbacks that could
you say Pat Mahomes
offense.
could be a bust. Now, JT, what about a bust? Could there be another Jimmy Clausen, another
Cade McNown,
Luke McCown,
Sam Darnold?
All right, Reggie. He says it's Sam Darnold is
turns
the
the
bust.
football over entirely too much.
All right, Mike, who's your bust?
My bust is going to be the guy you like. I think it's going to be Josh Allen.
Cosign on
I think that's neck and neck anyway.
Yeah, I think that he has the highest bust potential because of the reasons that I had stated before.
And because they had him on the pedestal before last year's draft.
Right. And a lot of times people like to compare him to Carson Wentz because, big, strong guy, played like an inferior, conference or division. I mean, Carson Wentz, he had 17 TDs, only 4 interceptions this last year. I don't think there's any comparison.
Unless he's hunting and fishing like Carson Wentz, then we got no problem.
Yes.
All right. We still have more football discussion to go around. We're here at the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. This is Talking About Sports. All right, welcome back to Talking About Sports. We've made an in-show trade. We've traded Reggie Walker for William Wilson and a player to be named later. So, William Wilson, glad you're here. And by the way, your client, Jordan Montgomery, starting left-handed pitcher of the New York Yankees, is on the hill today pitching against the Minnesota Twins. He's got a shutout going, so that's good. He'll hopefully get some more suits in the offseason.
So Jordan's my friend. Jordan's a good guy, and I knew him a couple of years before they brought him up. He's still he was in the Yankee system.
Great.
He's on progression right where they thought he was going to be.
Running backs are a big focus. We heard Reggie Walker, who says that Saquon Barkley is the best player in the draft. John Tobias, what do you think of the running backs? Saquon Barkley, obviously number one, but who are some maybe some late first, maybe some second and third round guys? I got a list, and I want to see what you got.
You know, a couple of guys coming to mind. I really like a guy from San Diego State, Rashad Penny.
He's on my list.
Yep, I've seen him play several times. I've seen him play several times, and I think that he is really good, durable back. Even though, of course, nowadays you don't need a durable back, to carry 30 times like the Earl Campbell days and Jerome Bettis days. But he is really, really solid, and whether he played against big-time competition or not, he delivered.
All right, Mountaineer Mike, who you got?
I'll tell you, the one guy I think, my prediction that I think the Panthers are going to look at, because I think they're going to want to run back in this draft.
Not some little Chuck and Duck kind of punch and Judy guy.
No, I think they're going to go down. They're going to later rounds, and he's going to be available. Bo Scarborough from Alabama. I think he's going to be available when they pick around the 5th round or 6th round, whatever. I think he's going to be available, and he'll be a good matchup with McCaffrey as a big-time back. Doesn't need the ball all the time, as you said. I think the biggest question with him, the reason he's dropped so far, is durability.
Right,
but he doesn't play every day, every down.
William Wilson, you've said on record that had this guy, Sony Michel of Georgia, not been taken out of the game, that the Georgia Bulldogs would be the national champions. I'm hoping he's still going to be around and the Redskins can trade up and get this guy, but a lot of people think he's a late first rounder.
I'm not a big fan of taking running backs in the first round. I don't care. Unless Jesus is your agent, I'm not a big fan of taking first round running backs in the first round because
he's going to be quarterback.
They peak and then they just drop off so quick, and you just overpay. Anybody in the first round, you just overpay them. I just don't believe in taking running backs in the first round. I think you get him a second round guy. Maybe if you're going to trade up, no, I wouldn't trade up any higher than second.
What about Ezekiel Elliott?
Huh?
What about Ezekiel Elliott, Todd Gurley, Adrian Peterson?
Emmett Smith, your guy from Dallas.
They balled out.
But for every one that you can name, how many can you name that just didn't play?
Probably a lot.
That's the thing. I'm a businessman. I'm like, what's the best? How do I hedge my bets? I'd rather get a good offensive lineman. I'd rather have a good offensive lineman that can make an average running back great. They bring somebody who has to be great, that has to work around flaws in my line.
All right, I like Sony Michel, and I think he's a good. Darius, how you pronounce this guy's name, Mike?
Geis.
Geis.
LSU.
All right.
Yeah.
This guy's big. A lot of people are trying to link him to the Redskins also. He's a big guy. I think Carolina, another way to keep your defense off the field is to keep moving the ball. You have a good tight end like Greg Olsen who got an extension today from what we understand. You get some receivers. You have a good offensive line. You move the ball. You keep Cam, the defenders, away from him. Guys like Ronald Jones from Southern Cal. How about Kerryon Johnson of Auburn? Kalen Ballage from Arizona State? And how about North NC State? Two guys. Was it Naheem Hines and Jalen Samuels?
From Charlotte, Malik Creek.
I mean, how did NC State lose any games? Every one of my lists, NC State's got guys at every position. How did they lose any games?
They're the new Chapel Hill.
JT,
they're the new North Carolina Chapel Hill. They bring in really great talent. They can get great ingredients. They just can't cook.
I'll say this about the running back position. In previous years, I would totally agree with Mr. Wilson here on the first round and using a running back. But the running back position has increased its value over the last couple of years. Some of the guys you mentioned, Ezekiel Elliott, Todd Gurley, these are guys that have value lately, and I think you're going to see that in this draft. I think you're going to have probably 3 in the first round, is my prediction.
We'll just don't want you drafting another Tamanga Biakabatuka, who I think you can get a Rolex from somewhere around Lake
Shout out to University of Michigan.
Hey, I agree. I like what Mike's saying. I agree with saying that. I think a lot of running backs will go this round. I'm just not a fan of that, of putting my money there. If I'm going to put my money in, I'd rather get on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd rather get a 6 running back with an 8 or 9 or 10 offensive line than a 10 running back. Yeah,
I think in the case of Barkley, though, Barkley looks like that player that's going to be that could be the next Adrian Peterson. That could be in that. If you think he's going to be that guy, it's really hard to pass up on him, even at the Giants or beyond in the top five.
And I know I'm crazy for saying this, but I really like Sonny Michel better than I like Barkley.
A lot of people do.
I think he played against better competition. He showed up when he needed to. Not only did he show up, he showed out. And again, the only person that could stop him when he's on the field performing was his coach.
He'll be fresh too. He's splitting time with Chubb all those years.
Amen.
I like for Carolina, Jalen Samuels could be a guy you can get maybe third or fourth, depending on how the draft shakes out. I really like these guys. And to Will's point, you can get like Chris Thompson of the Redskins. He was a 5th-round pick. And here's a guy who, before an injury, was on par for a Pro Bowl season. So there are good backs. There are good quality backs. Your guy from Kansas City.
Kareem Hunt.
What round? He was a 3rd or 4th round?
Third round. Le'Veon Bell was a third rounder.
The guy from Atlanta.
And actually even the offensive rookie of the year, Alvin Kamara.
Alvin Kamara from the
Panthers.
Atlanta had a good guy.
Redraft on that one.
So we lots of running backs to choose from. We've got linebackers to talk about. Defense, more players, more draft. It's all draft here on Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill.
All right, we down to 3. Crown time.
Get the crown one. All right, welcome back to Talking About Sports. We're here at the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. John Tobias had to catch a plane. Some undisclosed situation arises, and he's a busy man and very important. So here with Mountaineer Mike Freer, William Wilson, linebackers. I don't know. It's kind of like, Will, I look at it this way. They're kind of like the running backs. You sometimes can get good ones later in the round. Sometimes they're impact. But how many downs on in your set of downs are the linebackers going to be on the field before an opposing team goes 4 wide, 5 wide, and you don't need linebackers. You need extra safeties and DBs. So is the linebacker position maybe being de-emphasized?
Yeah, but I don't think there aren't that many offensive lines out there that are good enough to hold back. You can just spread your offense out like this. So I think your linebackers are very important. Your linebacker is basically the quarterback of your defense. So I think if you're going to put some money on, take a gamble, I would take my gamble on a linebacker much more than I would a running back. Because a running back is just going to take what's given. A linebacker is going to look at what's going on and help direct traffic and kind of shut you down. A good linebacker can help make sure your defense gets off the field.
Oh, I agree. I think it's an interesting position now, like you said, Kevin, the way it's designed. I think you have more of the hybrid player, if you will, the safety that can also play running back, those freak athletes that Shaq Thompson used to be.
Who Carolina picked up his 5th-year option on.
I saw that. That was a good move by them.
I agree.
Somebody can fly around the field and make the plays and keep up with the tight ends, keep up with some of the wide receivers, and be able to make those plays.
I think this guy, to your point, Mike and Will, hybrid guy. Roquan Smith of Georgia, I think he's one of the best football players in this draft. I would love to have him on at least for the Redskins, but I don't know where who's going to go first. Tremaine Edwards of Virginia Tech, who's an outside linebacker, defensive end pass rusher, or Roquan Smith, who can play inside and outside linebacker.
Everything I've read seems to point towards Smith as being the first of those two selected. He's a freak of a player. He looks like a guy who's can be that Kuechly type of player to solidify your linebacker position for years, and he looks like the guy that I can't see him going any beyond number 10. But the Virginia Tech player, as you said, is another guy outside, a guy who can line up on the defensive end as the outside linebacker, getting to the quarterback.
3-4 outside linebacker, 4-3 defensive end.
Correct. Is a much valued position these days in the NFL with all the passing. So he won't go much further after Smith gets taken.
All right. Well, Will, with Thomas Davis impending retirement, a year out minus a few games off at the beginning of the year, and Luke Kuechly having some concussion issues, shoulder issues, elbow issues over the years, and Shaq Thompson has his fifth-year option. Do you maybe look in the middle rounds to maybe get, say, maybe a guy like Darius Leonard of South Carolina State, who could be there in round, they're saying as high as 2, he could be 3 or 4.
Yeah, I would take that. I would go with that because linebackers don't cost you as much money. You know, so they're just by position. You look at the positions that cost you a lot of money. Linebackers are kind of in the middle of the road of what teams have to spend their money on as far as skill players and stuff. So if I'm going to take that, I'd absolutely do that because, like I said, TD's on his last year. You know, maybe another year with all the the suspension stuff going on. He may say, I don't want to finish my last season like this. He may come back one more. But either way, if you're planning for the future, and again, Luke not being as consistent as you may want him to be with concussion injuries, he's one bad hit away from being done for the season. So I would absolutely bring in somebody as a cushion. I'd bring in a free agent as a cushion because somebody could play right now in case you need him early.
David Mayo and Dan Connor, some of the guys they have as special team guys who filled in, I think did okay. But I mean, I think you want to upgrade there.
I don't put a lot of faith in those. If TD's out for 4 games, if Luke gets a concussion. If Luke gets a concussion in the first game, now you're out TD and Luke. You're putting everything on Shaq Thompson.
And by the way,
I don't trust Mayo to come up.
And very much Thomas Davis, props for being a solid citizen and owning up to everything. He didn't say he was misquoted or taken out of context or whatever. So I got a lot of respect for Thomas Davis. Now,
absolutely, Thomas is a great guy.
Safeties, Derwin James, Florida State, and Minka Fitzpatrick are your top 10 guys to a lot of places. I'd like to see, I keep bringing it up, Carolina would love to have any of these guys fall to them in the 20s, but the Redskins would love to have any one of these guys fall to them at 13.
Are we in D.C. or Carolina? Okay, I keep hearing you talk about with the Redskins.
I'm just saying, Will, you'd love to have one of those guys. You don't have another one of these Cliff Harris or one of those guys falling to you anymore. So
Waters.
Ronnie Harrison at Alabama could be there. Mountaineer Mike, a guy from Alabama, or Terrell Edmonds, Virginia Tech, a second and third round guy, safety. Maybe you like him. Jesse Bates from Wake Forest.
My prediction is I think they're going to go safety with their first pick, Carolina. And I think it's going to be, I personally think it's going to be Justin Reed. I think he was really productive at Stanford. He's got all the physical tools you want in terms of size. He did really well at the combine in terms of his speed. He seems like he played in a quality conference in the Pac-12. I think he's going to be the pick for the Panthers in my prediction. My mock draft or whatever, mockery draft, if you will.
Will, I think Mike touched on it. Maybe a safety is the hybrid linebacker DB guy. Rules have changed where, no more Ronnie Lotz and Steve Atwaters and Alvin Walton.
Right.
These guys that are going to light you up going over the middle, you're going to get, an ejection, maybe a suspension. How important are safeties, given that they're going to now are being charged to cover slot guys and tight ends and running backs?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very important because you need a guy that can move around. The game is evolving where you need to be a multiple position player. That's what you see you're going to. Your corners may be the only thing that's really playing one position. But your safety linebackers, they'll always be interchangeable because quarterback plays get becoming much more, they're going to start going more and more down the field. So that's why I look at somebody like a Derwin James from Florida State or Harrison from Alabama. They're both tall safeties. They're 6'2". They're more that Richard Sherman type player. They're tall, they're beefy, and if you can get them in to play a hybrid between a safety and a linebacker, now you got a big linebacker in the middle that you can interchange between the two. That can give you that almost like a Legion of Doom or Legion of Boom 2.0.
Especially if you have speed at that position, and you can recover and you can get to the running back from your safety position. You can minimize those things. If you can cover your slot receiver, if you can cover your defensive tight end, without any issues. Yeah, the safety position, because of the way the offenses are now, are really high. You can tell just by all the mock drafts. You can tell by all the evaluations. The safety position, at least this year, is really deep.
All right, now I think if you're Carolina, James and Fitzpatrick are definitely going to be gone.
Yes.
If you're drafting in the first round, a lot of people are linking Jair Alexander of Louisville. Josh Jackson of Iowa could be there as corners now. But if James or Fitzpatrick are not there at safety, maybe look at corner because your guy, what's his name, Batman from West Virginia, got Carolina did sell high before.
Darryl Worley. He didn't last long in Philly.
He went to the wrong cheesesteak place. He should have gone to Pasadino's. But anyway, he's out in Oakland. Good luck with that out there. All right, we've got more positions, offensive line, defensive line. We got it all here on Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. All right, welcome back to Talking About Sports. We're here at the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill with William Wilson, Mountaineer Mike Freer. Saw a lot of Arkansas guys on my list, kind of like NC State. You wonder how they lost games. Maybe it was maybe they've tried to correct that problem. But tight ends.
That's why we have a new head coach.
Well, Coach Bielema is definitely widely regarded, but hopefully John Daly's got his sideline pass back. That's only thing I care about. Tight ends, offensive and defensive line. Hayden Hurst in South Carolina. Jeff Taylor, our colleague here, Talking About Sports, really likes Hayden Hurst at South Carolina, but with Greg Olson getting an extension today, maybe that kind of moves down to the second and third rounds. Maybe a guy like Mike Gesicki of Penn State, Dallas Goddard, San Diego State, Jordan Akers of Central Florida could be there. I like a guy, Ryan Izzo from Florida State. I like him maybe in the 6th or 7th round. He could be there for you. Offensive and defensive line, you touched on it earlier. Offensive line for Carolina definitely need. We talked about Carolina as an outside linebacker, defensive end. What about offensive line tackles like Mike McGlinchey? He's going to go top 5, maybe to your Giants. A guard, Colby Gossett out of App State could be there in round 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think for the Panthers, I think they're going to be looking at the guard position first before they look at offensive tackle, and that's a spot they could look at 24 as well.
Isaiah Wynn from Georgia plays guard, tackle, and center.
That's a guy they could.
And with Ryan Khalil leaving in a year, maybe center is something that they look at down the line.
I think center is a definite spot. The guy from Arkansas is a definite possibility. I don't know if you want to take him at 24. I think he'll be available.
Could be there in the second.
He could be there in the second. You're absolutely right. While I think they're going to go safety at 24, it would not surprise me for them to address the guard position in the first round. I think there's enough quality players out there in that position that they can get somebody, and Isaiah Wynn would be a good choice.
Will, is it Coach Brown, your guy, who's formerly Carolina, now with the Arizona Cardinals?
Yep.
Now, I wonder what Coach Brown would say, looking at some of these prospects. I mean, he probably was sent to scout a lot of these guys. He's looked at a lot of tape. Maybe a guy like Coach Brown sees a guy who plays offensive tackle in college, but he says, man, that guy's got good guards. I could use him at guard, or I could make him a center. Or maybe a guy like Brandon Parker from North Carolina A&T, 6'7" and 310 pounds. Maybe in the 3rd or 4th round could help Carolina. Maybe they could see him and maybe move him into, maybe he played tackle at A&T. Maybe he could play guard in the Panther scheme.
Yeah, absolutely, because the thing is, you can't coach size. 6'7", you said 320.
Bobby Knight said you can't teach height.
Yeah, I mean that's a full-grown man.
Oh, yeah.
You got to pack your
Coach
lunch.
Brown's a full-grown man.
Yeah, and he's bigger than Coach Brown. Or he's he's back. He's a little bit lighter than Coach Brown, but he's taller than Coach Brown. So you look at a guy 6'7", 320. You don't just move that guy out of the way. You have to commit to him. So when he's ready to move, he's gonna move. He's gonna move your running back. If I'm Cam Newton and I got a big, as what they call them, hog mollies.
Hog mollies.
I got a big
That's
guy
Dave
like
Gettleman
that
for you.
And I got to get a guy like that either blocking my blind side, or I can look at him.
Well, he had the blind side. They didn't work out.
Anyway, or I got somebody. He's leading my blocker to this right side. Or if the play falls apart and he takes off running, I can run behind him. Now you got 6'5", running behind 6'5", 240, running behind 6'7", 320. You got to commit. That's a total team effort now to stop that ball from moving. That's going to move the chains.
Put it this way: you would not, if you're the Panthers and you're a Panthers fan, you cannot fault if it's the decision of the Panthers, the first or even the second pick, to go for offensive line to try and protect Cam as much as possible and open up some
I think Matt Khalil was a disappointment at tackle. Maybe they move him to guard.
That's a possibility.
I like in the later rounds a guy named Alex Kappa from Humboldt State, Division II. He could be available. Some people are saying he could be in the fourth round. 6 or 7 for sure, but this is a guy, good size, like Will's saying, you can't teach size. This is a guy that could be who they say has all the skills that are necessary. He played D2, but still he gets in camp, and maybe he's maybe inactive for first part of the year. He could help you out down the line.
It's definitely, I mean, you need depth. That's a good pickup. If you like him, if you think he's got the skills, that's an absolutely good choice.
All right, tackles. Well, before we get to Will here, defensive tackles, Vita Vea from Washington, from the University of Washington. The Redskins are linked to him, Will. Deron Payne from Alabama. A lot of people like him. Lots of guys. But these big guys, Will, and we mentioned it for Coach Brown and now Brandon Parker from North Carolina A&T. But Coach Brown, you mentioned him. He's one of your clients, fashion client. Mm-hmm. He's a big guy. I see him. He's at your celebrity golf tournament, which is, what day is that?
May 21st.
That's just right around the corner. Definitely
less than a month.
We'll get some information on that later. But a guy like Coach Brown always looks good to me. Mm-hmm. Always wears nice clothes because he goes to your store. But how do these guys when they go in? I've seen some faux pas in the NFL draft. Guys look ridiculous in some suits out there. What are some suits do's and don'ts? Besides going to William Wilson Clothing.
Well, first, don't stop wearing stuff so tight. We know you're big and muscular. Stop wearing stuff. I should be able to take your blood pressure through your suit. So that's one thing. And two,
you hadn't seen some of mine lately.
Yeah. Two, stop wearing all these. Look like you're from an old Godfather movie where you got all this bling outside your suit on top of your tie. That just looks tacky too. It looks like one of these old Italian mafia guys is going to make me an offer I can't refuse. Just trying to do too much. They're going to have the blinged out watches. Some jeweler's going to give them a watch to wear, go on stage, look flashy, and then 15 minutes later they give it back to the jeweler and they take it away. But the thing is, have properly fit clothes and don't try to do too much. Don't have the lapel pin, the pocket square, pocket clip.
Next week, Will, we're going to have your winner and loser from the NFL draft. We'll have to now a quick winner and loser for you this week, Will.
I think the winner this week for me, Matt Kenseth.
I was about to say that.
He's getting back in the car. The loser, Trevor Bain. Because they're going to share the ride. That's only going to last for so long. Because if Matt Kenseth starts winning races, it's a wrap for Trevor Bain.
Mountaineer Mike, what do you got?
Winner and loser?
Or final thought, whatever.
Final thought here, real quick. Not to get selfish here, but it was 1 year ago
that West Virginia pen down.
1 year ago to the day today that my time with ESPN, along with Reggie Walker, my colleague, came to an end. And the reason I bring this up is because there's a lot of situations for people out there in life where the doors close, professionally and whatnot. And what I found out in the last year, the doors close, but others open up, and you really find out who your friends are. And I'm going to give a shout out to a couple of people outside of my family, my daughter, my wife, who've been unbelievable this last year. Guys like Kevin Tolbert, our executive producer, who gave me a shot on this stage right here. People like Keith Lipscomb, who you guys don't know out there, but he's the guy who introduced me to somebody that allowed me to do some work to keep me busy, to keep me active, to get me out of the house, to keep me busy. you really find out who your friends are when situations like what happened 1 year ago come up. And I'm really grateful for everybody who has helped me out along the way, been great friends and family and everything. But when doors close, make sure you realize that others open up and take advantage of that.
Well, I hope so. A year ago, ESPN Today talking about sports. Boy.
Talk about an upgrade.
Yeah, there you go. I'm glad you said that, not me. Hey, I just got to say, shout out to one of the greatest sports figures of the 20th century, Bruno Sammartino. Not just professional wrestling, but a transcendent sports figure. He was sports entertainment way before there was sports entertainment. You're talking about a guy who had a private audience with the Pope. This guy was on all the talk shows, was on with Johnny Carson. Bruno Sammartino, rest in peace, and my good friend and former business partner, number one Paul Jones, the Mid-Atlantic Zone, former U.S. Mid-Atlantic champion, World Tag Team champion, died on the same day.
Wow.
Rest in peace, Bruno Sammartino and number one Paul Jones. For William Wilson, Mountaineer Mike Freer, I'm Kevin Casey. This has been Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill.